Hello everyone, Chrisa is here, and today we will be doing our third video on the embrace. In our last video, we were talking about the understanding how we manage ourselves while in the frame. How sometimes the position of our head or the position of our chest or how we manage our weight over our feet affects the tension and the weight and the energy that is put in the embrace and in the frame. And that can create extra tension and might cause problems to ourselves and to our partners. So that's what we were exploring last time. And this week we will be exploring the pull, but trying to understand not so much the action of inviting someone forward and them and the response that we should be feeling, but more to understand that flexibility and that suspension that we should be feeling in the through the frame. So how do it's basically a balance between being steady and being present and not being tensed. So you don't want to be tensed, but you do really, really want to be ready, but with some flexibility and some suspension. So how do we manage all of that? So that's what we're going to be looking at today. So with no further ado, here we go.
So what causes a lot of disconnect is how we manage that flexion, that initial flexion that invites our partner into a step. This is especially for leaders, but also how followers respond. So this is very much quad driven. So you can see how the front of the leg is really mostly engaged and presses the knee forward. You can see how that is different compared to this, which is also another mistake that we tend to send our bum back, and that pushes our body too much forward. But again, if you take a look at the legs, this is still really quad driven. The front of the leg is more active compared to the back, even though it looks like it's the opposite, but it's not. Another common way that we've tried to do this, leading or following, is as we bend the knees, we try to go up at the same time with the body. Again, though, that doesn't solve the problem, because there is still a very forward intention in the leg, and that is, we're trying to manage that with the hips going back and the body going forward and up, and there's a lot of things happening and a lot of disconnection between the different parts. So what you see here, it is what I would like to invite you to do. So now, as you can see, I am bending my knee, but it's not, if you go forward, reverse this video, is not with the quads activating, but it's more the back of the leg that is active. Let's see it again here. So it's more active around the back compared to the front. And you can see that based on the position of my knee, slightly not the same position as before. You can go back to the beginning. And you can also see that the back of the muscle, the hamstrings, you can see it it's activating in the video. So hopefully you'll be feeling that yourself while practicing this exercise. However, we are not doing this by activating the back of the leg. We are doing this by activating the psoas. So the psoas is a very powerful muscle that is going around the hip and up and feeds where the lumbar spine changes into the thoracic spine. So when you engage that muscle, you will cause two things to happen. You can create the bend in your knee because it runs around your hip, and at the same time, as you activate that to create that bend, it will slightly pull your spine into position, like you see happening here. It's super minor, and you don't need to do any extra work. And then the other interesting part is that in the same area, that's where we have another big muscle that comes all the way up and feeds into the shoulder blades, and of course connects to our arms. So the criteria, if you're doing this correctly, are three. One, you shouldn't be feeling any tension, and that includes your breathing. You should be very comfortable breathing. You should be feeling a connection from the hips, from the psoas, all the way up into the arms. And number three, you should be feeling that you are able to move within this position. Let's see. I'm going to be using, as you can see, some interesting material here. If you don't have something like that, a simple elastic band will do. I just didn't have one available, interestingly enough. So we start with just finding that same connection that we were talking about, but by moving the spine. So even now that you see me just moving the body around, you can see how the legs are changing, and though the decisions that I'm making at the top are affecting the base, which is meaning my feet. And we want to continue in this realm, so we are not going to be just focusing on the arms and the embrace. So moving on, this is an exercise that we've started our series of embrace videos, identifying the structure of the shoulder axis. And as you're going up and over, we have the arms reaching out on a diagonal, and as you're going, and they're relatively flexed, you can see that there is some softness in the elbows, and as you're reaching back, the fingertips are facing down, or the nails are facing down, and so we have internal rotation and extension. As opposed to when you're going forward and up, we have external rotation and flexion that can help us get into the embrace. Grab hold of your elastic band. Create a little bit of tension in the band, so walk a little bit away from the where you're holding on or where it's held up, and we're going to connect the two. So in this position, start creating that flexion that we created before through the psoas, and let it feed into the reach all the way into the hand. So let's see. You should be feeling they have a feeling of suspension right here. So there. And then you step. So there's going to be you're going to feel that band inviting you forward. And feel free to exaggerate a little bit as you go, and you will see me exaggerate too. This suspension, this feeling of suspension right here. So you can sit back here almost. It's going to feel like you're sitting back, even though, as you can see, I am not. And you will feel your center of gravity shifting. And once you let go of this suspension, you suspend here and you let go, and then you can step forward. So this is a very, very interesting feeling, a feeling where you are fully in control. You are definitely ready to move. As you can see, I'm not losing my frame, which is very important. So I'm not falling in. I'm not overextending the elbow. At the same time, though, I'm not working extra hard to make this happen. But I'm connecting the pieces of the upper and the lower body. I'm not losing my posture. You can also notice that. But what happens is that magic of the psoas is kicking in. And you have the ultimate connection between what is happening at the lower level, what is happening at the base, connected to what's happening, what we want to happen in the upper body, in the frame. So it is just connecting, creating a movement chain. So from the psoas, we start creating this flexion, and I'm exaggerating here, I apologize. We start creating this flexion. Once this happens, our spine is invited forward. Let's see this again. Boom, there. At the same time, our hips want to sit back, and that's a creation of the suspension. If you let go, of course, here at that initial state, this will not go anywhere. But the idea is that we hold on to this suspension, and we play with it. We are still in control of it, and then you can release the tension just a bit and make yourself move forward. The other interesting thing here to notice is that we we don't hold this suspension, and this is something that you want to practice a little bit, even though we're not oftentimes going to be on one foot, swinging our leg like this, like what I'm doing now. But it is important to understand where the limits of um, unwanted, where does unwanted tension start. So you want to be able to feel, just like when we were doing this work against the wall, you want to be able to feel in control, ready to move, but not tensed. And this is timing is also important, but also how you create that movement chain from the psoas up into the hand, through the shoulder and the elbow. So shoulder axis here plays a major role. Alignment plays a major role. How do you make that chain happen? I've shifted here a little bit, just my direction, just so you can see it from the front. You can see that there is not much happening, and I've assumed the role of the leader. So creating the same suspension, you will feel, as if you're practicing this as a leader, how much easier it is and very clear to communicate your intention if you create that movement chain from the psoas into the spine, into the shoulder, into the elbow, into the hand. Immediately your partner is like invited to move forward, and you have done nothing but create your own flexion. So and here again I am exaggerating. So you, of course, you don't need to create and nor hold the suspension for too long. So the idea here is, especially for a leader, to understand that what is happening in the legs, and how you manage to, through your practice, to lead yourself through the exercises, without creating any tension in the upper body, will help you immensely with your leading skills. So here, I've shifted my my position again. You don't want to do this. Back to quads, right? Back to the front of the leg. You want to do this instead. See how I am more, the knee, my knee is more in a much more different position, and I am not going up and down. I am not, see, pushing the knee forward. So linking back to the beginning, we can see this movement chain linking to the base and linking in the upper body. Now, similarly, with what we were practicing before against the wall, you don't want to drive that from the hips themselves. You see how much different this is compared to the suspension that we have been working on. So let's say it again. So it's almost like a release, almost like you release back, but you don't really release back. This is interesting. So instead of going forward and back with the hips, you want to almost sit back. I hope I'm trying to make the difference as obvious as possible through video. If we take a look at the elbow, you can see it's staying in place, but without really too much tension. And it's clear that I'm inviting my partner to move.